at is feature writing. Well, I find that people in journalism write a lot of hard news, but when it comes to writing a feature, some get stuck. And then there are people in public relations who write a lot of publicity and put them out there, but when it comes to writing a feature per se, they also get stuck. Now, maybe we can look at it in terms of the definition, what it is, and then maybe the types. Then we can look at the structure, and where we look at the introduction and the body, and then the conclusion, how you end it. So the feature is a typically reflective kind of writing, and what it does, it's really it takes a lot of research to do. So it isn't like your typical type of writing. What you need is to remember a few things, that you're allowed to use colorful language, and you can. What it does is that it allows you to focus on people, places, and events, and come out with a kind of description or writing that actually gets the effect that you're looking for. So, unlike the hard news, a feature covers topics in depth by highlighting and also explaining the most interesting and important elements of a situation or an occurrence. So the word is highlighting. So by spotlighting, we know that people use language in a way that sometimes may be subjective, which journalism doesn't, straight news doesn't quite allow, but a feature allows that. So now let's see what we do. Now, features can evoke imagery, can create atmosphere, and make people actually think hard about something. It isn't like your hard news, which is governed by urgency, by the inverted pyramid, and the summary lead, and the accuracy and balance and the like. Now, if we're looking at the inverted pyramid, what it says is that you list things in diminishing order of importance, and then what follows is a series of inverted pyramids. So from the most important to the next most important downwards, but the feature is not necessarily like that. And then the introduction also needn't be the typical summary lead where you try and explain everything or give a gist of what is coming. The thing about the feature is that sometimes the introduction of what the story is about is hidden maybe way in the 6th paragraph or somewhere, because it allows you to play around with what you can to attract attention and have impact. So now let's look at the types of features. Well, in terms of the types, we have the typical human interest, and then the human interest story, we can say they are more emotional rather than rational, and they tend to highlight how people express emotions like joy, like sorrow, like anger, jealousy, greed, love, hatred. You see all these stories. Sometimes you see a story of maybe somebody who's so rich and bequeathed everything to a pet dog or a monkey. Those are the kind of human interest angles, you know. And then there can be a feature which is a profile, where you're just profiling someone. So that reveals an individual's character and lifestyle, and makes people feel that they know the person. And there is always the tutorial type of feature, where you, the producer or the writer, you can learn about something and then you show how it is done. Or sometimes, if you still haven't got the hang of it, you can use what we call the interpretative interview and have an expert to show how this is done. Then there's also the historical feature, which maybe traces the origins of things and then compares from a time past to the current times, and allows people to see the difference of how things have changed over time. Then we tend to have the seasonal feature also. Around Christmas, you see, or any such important event, Easter also, you see people writing on that theme and it's all over the place. A lot of these features are seasonal features. Okay. Now, what we want to bear in mind is that the feature is a kind of real story. Some people try to confuse it with something else, but then they tend to be journalistic, and they explore creative ways of making an impact with the story. So you find that it isn't an opinion, essay, or editorial, and it shouldn't be confused with the typical creative writing or works of fiction. Although a feature can delve into that, but then, well, you want to be clear, for our journalistic purposes, we know that what we put out there is factual. Now, the writer's opinion when it comes to a feature, the writer's opinions and attitudes, they are not important to the story. The writer keeps himself out of the story, and so typically a feature is written in the third person, just like the hard news. That's one similarity. When we look at the structure of a feature, we can say again that unlike the hard news, the introduction of a feature does not always give the gist of the story. What it does is to find an introduction that's going to attract attention and keep that attention. Okay. And then the gist can be buried, as I've said earlier, somewhere in a nut graph, what they call a nutshell paragraph, which gives the gist of the story. And that could be somewhere hidden, you know. Well, in order to command attention, the introduction of a feature can use folklore, it can use poetry, it can use nursery rhymes, it can use a parable, or any powerful quote, something someone has said, that would make you want to listen to how it continues or what the lesson is from that. So that is one thing we want to bear in mind, that it isn't the typical hard news where you write in the inverted pyramid, where if, for instance, the most important person at the event was the president, you want to start with the president, then come, no, it isn't. It is what you want to tell. So you want to bear that in mind when you're writing a feature. The introduction is something you want to draw attention and actually keep that attention. Now, where the introduction of the article goes straight to the issue at stake, if maybe it takes the form of a typical hard news, it is usual to generalize in the introduction, and then maybe in subsequent paragraphs you give specific examples of the issue at stake. Now, let's say if it is accidents you want to talk about, well, you can say, well, they are everywhere. Accidents are everywhere. Or hardly a day goes by without an accident. That could be a very good introduction for a feature. And then you go on to, as it were, tell the story with a specific. Now, still on the introduction employs meaningful anecdotes and significant quotes. We've made that point. And then we're saying also that the writer can choose to tell the story out of order to engage the reader's interest. So he can begin by maybe bringing the lesson before actually the story itself. So let's look at the body of a feature. Now, a couple of examples may be enough. You find that in the introduction you've generalized, so that is still in the mind of the reader or the person who is viewing. So it is okay to use just one typical example to tell the story, covering as many aspects of the problem as possible. You can do that. Now, if it's about medical bills, for example, you know, one person's medical tribulation, well, can easily drive the point home. So you don't need to fill the page with statistics and the like, otherwise it gets boring. So for a typical human interest story, the priority is not just splashing figures all over the article. It is actually looking at the bigger picture, using the elements we've mentioned, whether it's hatred, love, or all these things to drive home the message. A hint of statistics in the body Well, it's okay because people still need some statistics to work with. So you can give us a little statistics in the body, but then not as some people would do. They keep just giving statistics. So you have about 10 or 15 examples. Well, that gets tiring. So just a little hint of it is okay. Now, the priority we said is highlighting the bigger picture in terms of impact and consequences. And one thing we always want to bear in mind also is that people who write features, they want to go by the proper journalistic standards. So they use what we call the style manuals, like it could be the Chicago Manual of Style or the Associated Press style book. It makes you conform to writing propriety. Those things are very important. And then if you want to proceed, you want to also remember that when it comes to giving us the details, remember to use this principle of one idea per paragraph. And remember also that a paragraph needs not be too long, because if we are saying an idea per paragraph, you might be tempted to just put all that long idea in a paragraph. Well, it doesn't work like that. So what you can do is then you can continue on the next paragraph. Now, when you're using quotes, you know, when it comes to writing or what we do with writing especially, we use quotes and put them in quotation marks. But if you have video or audio, you know how we go about them. Yeah, but then where different people are being quoted, you want to be sure to finish with one person completely. So if there was an event and what you're trying to talk about in your feature had to do with maybe what the president said, what the finance minister said, what the education minister said, you can finish with what the president said and go to the next, and then it makes it tidy instead of just going back and forth among the quotes. All right, you can use subheadings if it's not that long. You find that subheadings help to focus the person's attention, and even your own writing, it helps to focus what you want to say in a particular place, and the subheading highlights helps to draw attention to that. Okay, so when we come to the ending, you know, the writer, or if it were a video or audio, or the narrator can sum it up. But then sometimes, you know, the situation may be a bit complex, and which is even the more reason you need the writer or the narrator to sum up, because sometimes people read and they want decisions to be made for them, so they're reading and they're actually not drawing conclusions, so maybe it could be summarized nicely for them. Now, the ending can also be a speculation on the future with further questions, because the idea is to provoke thought, to kind of bring about change and the like. Your feature can also end with what was used in the beginning. Well, if it was a scene somewhere, you can start with that and probably finish with that scene. That's also not bad. And sometimes we tell stories using the examples of certain people. Maybe, as we said, sometimes we use a specific example. So if you're using the experience of, say, someone called John Mensah, and you started telling us how John Mensah began this journey of national health insurance, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can end and tell us what happened to him, or what might have happened to him, or where he got, and things like that. It makes it so beautiful. And I suppose on that note of beauty, maybe I can take leave with you. And we meet again on Thursday. I think I'll take another topic based on the feedback I get. Otherwise, if there are so many questions on this, what I'll do then is to actually spend another session looking at the questions raised, the issues raised, and that's the way we make progress. You know, I can always be contacted on the sidebar and the like. We want to make feature writing so easy. Remember to get here again with me next time. I am Carlton Cofie, live with you on Facebook. See you again sometime. Bye.